Yo-ho, brothers and sisters. In today's RPG sermon, I'm going to tell you about the Blackmine Corsairs, a D&D one-shot that I prepped and ran for a group of 10 players for a birthday that I think you all would have a ton of fun running. So I'm going to tell you about the map I prepped and how I used it. I'm going to tell you about the Blackmine Fleet, this pirate band that uses submersible detonating mines as their ships, as well as the crew itself and the kit bash that I put together for it and all that kind of stuff. So remember to pay your hobby tithing by liking this video. And if you're a patron, know that everything I'm about to show off today, you can get on the Patreon for $3 a month. So you can download that at a link down below. But with that being said, let us pray. The adventure. Pretty straightforward. The party is the crew of the Tangled Leviathan, this big, huge, beautiful ship that I had digitally kit bashed using a bunch of cool pictures and things like that. They're sailing out across the Dead Sea, or whatever ocean or sea you have in your world, when erupting up out of the water all around their ship are the Blackmine Fleet. These submersible World War II style or World War II sea mine looking vessels that the pirates all are inside. And when they erupt out of the water, the latches open and the crew members like catapult up onto the ship. So I had a bunch of pirates that were appearing like all along the deck. I had pirates that were able to start the combat up in the crow's nests and things like that. And with 10 players, like the ship was super crowded, but that was fine because then they just got to use all their kinds of abilities and stuff. But with your players, like, I mean, you could keep it this simple too. Just the one shot is you're ambushed by pirates. You just got to survive, right? Kill them all or do whatever you need to do to parlay. Just get out of this alive. Some of the funnest things about this one shot were some of the players were able to like swing around and use their acrobatics checks to maneuver all across these different masts. I really liked this ship that I put together because it had three of them, these three huge giant masts that gave a lot of maneuverability and height to the battle, right? The players were going all over the place. And also watching the players decide what to do with these mines, because I'm going to talk about them and kind of show off that art here in a little more detail in just a second. But I had this rule kind of developing as the one shot was going that if the ship wasn't being steered, if somebody wasn't using their action to move it in a safe direction or to try and avoid these mines, the ship would bump into them. And you'll see in the image in a second, but at the top there's these little detonator runes that would go off. They'd flash and create basically what I just described as like a thunder wave spell, and it would rock the ship. It would throw it all over the place, and then all the characters that were aboard the ship had to make deck saves or they got thrown overboard. And of course there's sharks and stuff down in the water, so the ship was constantly getting thrown around and rocked as they're trying to fight all these pirates, and more of them are jumping up out of these out of these submersible ships, right? It was awesome. It was so fun, just round after round after round of fighting pirates up in the crow's nest. Like I said, there was also one character, the fighter, who was right up in the front, like just dueling with pirates on this mast, and he was causing them to slip and fall off. At one point, I think he even fell and like got run over basically by the ship. It was so fun. And that literally is the pitch. That was all it was, just survive. So take this and run with it. Do whatever else you can imagine with it. But now I want to show you the actual Blackmine ships. So the Blackmine Crew and the Blackmine ships were about as simple as the one-shot pitch in terms of just I saw a picture of a World War II sea mine and just thought, that like I have to have that in my world. I need to bring it in somehow. And then this previous player of a one-shot of mine reached out, was like, hey, I want to do this birthday one-shot. Do you have any ideas? I'm like, oh, I've got one in mind. We could do a pirate adventure. And that just gave me the excuse I needed to start kit bashing and designing these submersibles. So the core of the vessel is this big circular cylindrical mine with, you can see all the different little prongs lining it that kind of give it the look of an urchin, which I really like as well. But as opposed to a normal mine where when it bumps into something, the whole thing explodes, to make it more fantasy-esque, I imagined and described that all of these prongs at the ends of them had a glyph placed upon it or etched into it, that if it bumped into something, that would cause the huge shatter spell or the thunder wave spell or whatever kind of magics you want to have these things do. Maybe it could even be a fireball spell, like the biggest, most deadliest one of these submersibles, right? But then, since they're meant to be inside of it, I added this little latch door to the front that is what like opened up and sent the pirates flying out. You can see I added some like oxygen tubing tanks and things like that to give it some sort of appearance that, yes, people can survive and live inside this thing. And then this was just like really, really cool art, or like some sort of sculpture of a weird sea leviathan thing that I just wanted to put onto the bottom of these, either to be some sort of weight that kind of kept the submersible way down so that it wasn't like, whoa, like spinning and rotating in the water, but also I imagine they could be like claws, big clamp claws that either hold the vessels when they submerge themselves, they kind of clamp into the rocks or the coral or whatever and wait for a ship to come by overhead, and then they detach and float up really quick and detonate against the ship. Or they also could be to like gather up treasure, to like clamp down on a treasure chest or rip open sunken ships, right? If they destroy a ship and they need to get to the loot, they can pilot these like miniature little submarines. Now, exactly how big are they and how many pirates are in it? In my one shot, I just hand waved that. I honestly didn't even think about that until I was making this video. But now, if I was to do it again, I'd probably say like maybe like 4 to 6 can fit inside each one. And one of those pirates has to stay behind to actually be piloting this thing, and the rest are jumping out. So then when the players get one of their own, if they are successful in doing that, then now they have a little mini, that's kind of like that magic item, that like big crab can looking thing. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about, but it's basically a version of that, I suppose, but it can explode. So that is the design of the Blackmine submersibles. I think it's just, I think it's so cool. Now let's talk about the coolest part, right? The Blackmine Corsairs themselves. So we're going to start with the captain's crew. And we'll start, of course, with Captain Blackmine Trenchcog. So named because she's actually more machine than flesh and bone anymore. She has like 4 mechanical arms, which I think all like it was a very steampunky look to begin with. And I just leaned even heavier into that, especially with this idea that they live and sail inside these mine submersible ships. It all just felt very clockwork, steampunk, very cool-esque, right? But anyways, so she's got one arm that has her giant blunderbuss rifle that is super accurate and very devastating in terms of damage at far range. Once you get close, though, she can't really do much with that. But to make up for that, in her other arm, she has a small little flintlock revolver pistol that is the inverse. So if you're close, it's very accurate and powerful, but if you're far away, then it can't really do much. Then she has this chain-bladed scimitar, and I added this 4th arm here, this like clawed hand type arm. And so she could make 2 melee attacks, but I also gave her the option to make a single melee attack, and it was just this spinning bladed AoE type effect where everybody in her melee range had to make a dex save or they would take some damage from her chain-bladed scimitar. So she has tons of options, very versatile in her damage output. And I also gave her the ability she had a climb speed on ships because of her long limbs. I described she moved almost like a king crab, just scuttling all over the place. So she could very quickly get up into the masts of the ship, into the crow's nest, and use her rifle to just do some very devastating blows. And if anybody got to her, she could fight in melee, but then escape very easily. Then over here, we've got First Mate Powder Mast, so named because he's got this big fume stack thing coming out of his shoulder like a ship's mast, and I imagine he's sort of the black powder alchemist leader of the crew. He's the one who knows how to make and safely handle all the explosives. He's the one who sets the explosive runes and resets them on their submersible mine ships, and so his gun could kind of shoot like minor explosive, like little mini cannonballs. And then I also thought, just with his like breather mask thing and these little grenades that I added to him, that he maybe breathes explosive powders. I don't think that needs to do anything. I just think it's a cool aesthetic. And then this guy is the Quartermaster Dreadhook. So he's this big, huge scuba tank looking dude, got really thick armor. I added this funny little fish tilt shield thing, and then his oxygen tank thing on the back. I had a special rule for him where when he died, if he took piercing, bludgeoning, slashing, fire damage, basically anything except kind of like psychic damage, then he would explode. Like in Call of Duty, the flamethrower guys, right? You shoot them and they go up in a fireball. But then I also added this hook to his mini so that he could grab characters and grapple them, or climb up things on the side of the ship, or haul up treasure. And then, of course, he has a chainsaw to cut through all that stuff. So he's a total badass. Now for some of the non-ranking members of the crew, you've got Octufina, the Kraken's Grasp. Now the original mini had these sort of like eyeball-looking things at the end. I think they were meant to be like lanterns or things that could illuminate the bottom of a sea trench. But I cut those off and put on these big, mechanical claw-looking things. So her role, I see being one who like can go down underwater with her, diving mask thing that I like. It looks like the sea mines, and she can use these limbs to pull the mines down underwater and latch them onto things, or she can lift them up out of the water for repairs. She can also use these to be a brute in melee. She's clearly, with the name Octufina and the Kraken's Maw, kind of meant to elicit that Dr. Octopus sort of combat style where these huge claws kind of come up on top of the ship and then lift her up out of the water with her trench coat dangling low with water trailing off of her, and she's grabbing characters and crushing them in her grasp, or she's ripping sections of the ship apart with these things. Just mega powerful giant melee attacks in combat, but unlike Quartermaster Dreadhook, she doesn't look like she could maybe take as much of a blow. So lower HP, very much a glass cannon type character. But if she's underwater, that's when I see her being like absolutely terrifying. So, now I'm thinking about it. If I were to run this adventure again, she might be down underwater at the start of the combat and is kind of using her arms to move the mines around and position them where she needs them to be. And if anybody falls off the ship, that's when she, like a squid, kind of swims over and just starts tearing them apart. But then you've got the Nitrox Cannoneer, so-called because, like, in scuba diving, I just looked up scuba diving terms, and nitrox or nitro, something about, like, that chemical nitro term came up. I'm like, oh, sure, like, there's tubes and things in her giant cannon she's holding that I imagine she uses that to fire off cannonballs or explosive rounds or grape shot or a harpoon shot or whatever. Like, you can kind of see this giant bag hanging over her shoulder that's filled with a bunch of cannonball ammunition types. So, First Mate Powder Mast could have made her all kinds of things to shoot out of it. But then you can kind of see it from this angle, but I added on these two, like, crossbow ballista looking arm things to the sides of the cannon just to give it a cool medieval look to it. So this was a character who I had launched up to the top of a crow's nest and was just shooting her cannon down with all kinds of different ammunition types all throughout the battle. But unlike some of the other characters, she didn't have a lot of maneuverability. So once they got up to her, she was pretty much just cut down very easily. And then you've got the Blackmine Sea Butcher. So these are the base crew members, just brutes in combat. They have a similar looking, like, bladed sword. And then I took this, I don't even remember what this bit was from, but I realized, it kind of looks like an anchor if you flip it upside down. So I put that on, I swapped it out for his other weapon, and he could use that to, like, climb up the sides of ships and things. So that's the crew. And that was the one shot that I prepped and ran for a group of 10 players. It was awesome. I really hope you guys decide to run something similar. Even if you don't run exactly this one shot, I hope this inspired you with some sort of cool idea when it comes to Corsairs and Pirates and deep sea trench warfare, whatever you want for your world building, your games. Right now, if you are a member of the Patreon, if you're thinking about joining, I just want to show you everything that went out with this release. So there is 3 different map variants, one of just open Dead Sea, one that has the Tangled Leviathan, that giant ship, and then there's one that has the mines on there. So if you just wanted a version with just the ship, you could totally do that. I also included the PNGs of both the Blackmine Submersible and the Tangled Leviathan. If you wanted to add those into whatever VTT you're using, just have them independently. There are prep sheets, one for the map, so there's just a big picture of the image, and then a section for you to put whatever session prep notes you need. Then there are character prep template sheets, so you can see, like, there's a big image of the character, then there's a section for role-playing, combat, and loot or / exploration notes, and then a big section miscellaneous at the bottom. There is one of these for all of the characters, so you can have a sheet for every single one of these NPCs if you really wanted to, which you can see, like, you get the PNG Digimini for the entire Blackmine Corsair fleet, and then if you're more of a pawn person, then I included all of that in there as well. So all of that for $3 a month on the Patreon, and this is just one Sunday's release, right? I put out stuff like this every Sunday, so this is a good time to plug not only the Patreon, but also you should just subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can just see the sheer quantity of D&D system agnostic prep that I like to put out into the world, into the hobby for you all to use. So I forgot to mention too, paper minis. This is a PDF with paper minis for all of them, and there's a ton of different versions. Like, this just has all of them on one page, but then there are pages where there are duplicates of a lot of the basic crew members. There are larger versions, like 2-inch by 2.5-inch tall versions of the captain and Quartermaster Dreadhook, so that you can use those as paper minis if you want. So go check all that out. You basically have everything you have everything you need to run this one shot on the Patreon for $3, which is Pretty crazy, if you really think about it. And we'll finish up this video by, of course, plugging the Doomed Stronghold, my ongoing Kickstarter. Less than 2 weeks to go, and we are $87 away, at least when I took this screenshot, from our next stretch goal. So it just keeps climbing. I'm expecting in the final week for sure to hopefully see like a big jump as some of the people who've been waiting till the end to kind of see where it gets, and they start coming back, like start jumping on the bandwagon. But if you haven't heard about this, it is a handmade zine that I'm putting together full of random tables to generate ideas for strongholds in all kinds of environments. There's tables for Arctic strongholds, astral strongholds. There's a table we unlocked with a stretch goal for mobile strongholds, so like a caravan of wagons or a flying fortress or something on the top of a monster. I have to brainstorm that list still, but tons of tables like that, as well as tables for the NPCs to run the stronghold, the dungeons that you find beneath the stronghold, the just random visitors that show up at the gates wanting to, come in and maybe set up camp in the stronghold. So many ideas. It's crazy. And I'm really excited to make it. It's handmade too. It's not like getting built by some other company. I am going to make this. So I'm embracing that DIY flavor of the hobby. So go check that out. I've got that linked down in the description. But other than that, I don't have anything else for you today. So thank you all for watching. Appreciate your time. I hope you get value out of these. And we say these things in their unholy names. Amen.